Every time the Wheel of Fortune comes around, you all ask, Chisgule, are these commanders worth spinning? And this wheel? Man, the leadership wheel is just really weird these days. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in this video, sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, I am going to break it down which of these commanders is worth spinning and why, compared to other things you could be spending your gems on in the game, which means it's got to be better than doing the egg event. We'll talk about that in just a second. So let me just give you the quick summary of these commanders, okay? If you care about field fighting, Trajan is amazing, especially if you're bringing at least 3 marches yourself. If you're a garrison captain and you're going to max YSS, right now he's a part of a meta garrison combo, and you know, he's extremely versatile. He doesn't care about a troop type, and because of that, YSS is a strong invest if you're going all in only. And last but not least is Charlemagne. This is a Wales only choice. Wales only, and I'm going to talk about why that is more toward the end of the video. Of course, there are timestamps to navigate to whichever portion you're interested in, and subscribe if you're interested in Rise of Kingdoms videos designed to help you get value and smash your enemies. Let's start with Trajan. Now look, when Trajan came out, I was a little unsure if he was going to be good. In fact, I think I said he was going to be bad, and then it turns out he was amazing. And ever since that time, I've been all in. He is 100% still meta for open field right now. If you're bringing 5 marches, he's got to be a part of the 5 march murder ball. He is exceptional. And although there are definitely commanders you can put together in combination to get 5 really high damage marches without having Trajan, I feel like bringing him to the party really elevates this thing, and you don't need to take my word for it. If you look at the Ark of Osiris League and the Grand Finals, Trajan is all over the place. The top tier teams all know that Trajan is very good. Now, I also used him in KVK with only 3 marches in the open field. This was on my restart project, and I was pretty happy with it. I would say that unless what you're doing is just running around to buff your allies and you're not too worried about getting your own kills at all, then I would not be using him with less than 3 of your own marches, okay? I would say 3 marches or more is where you would start to consider using Trajan in your own murder ball. And you could certainly make an argument that going for a commander that just does a lot of buffing and debuffing, that's really what he does, okay? Giving you rage, giving you bonus skill damage, making the target take more damage, being really tanky, that is not as good as going for commanders that do lots of damage at the start of the game or when you enter into the Season of Conquest. And that would be a reasonable conclusion, right? Like if you were bringing 3 marches to the field and you only had 3, it might ideally be Ramses with Esong and Guan and Alex, or like a Guan Leo that's 5511, and like Salad and William, and both of them are 5551, right? You've got a lot of options for what you could do with 3 commanders, but the biggest draw to using Trajan is that when you use Trajan, you have a really great spot to put your Ethelfled. And I know that sounds really weird to be like, wait, that's why using Trajan is good in part? And the answer is yes. If you're a player that doesn't have many commanders, and most players entering the Season of Conquest don't, the ability to make your Ethelfled a part of a top-tier meta combo is really strong. That's a big draw for using Trajan. It's to activate Ethelfled in a way that honestly makes sense for a very long time. And even on my main account, where I have a ridiculous amount of options for commanders, I still used Trajan Ethelfled in the open field when I was at like 6 and 7 marches in the Season of Conquest. So that was very viable. And again, I had a ton of choices from what I could choose from. Now, this brings us to a very commonly asked question is, you know, okay, Chisgule, but can I like just do a 5511 with this dude? Could I do maybe 5551, maxing the first 2 or the first 3 skills? And I would say, sure, you could use him that way, but that should not be your planned stopping point for Trajan. The defensive capability from the 4th skill is very important. Without it, you've got a commander that is very slow and very vulnerable, and I don't love that. Also, the expertise is good. It boosts the rage you're gaining, the skill damage that you're dealing. It's a solid pickup to actually have the expertise skill. So yes, you can start with a unmaxed Trajan as a starting point, and you got your maxed Ethelfled, and like that's where you're at. But I would not think of that as a destination in the same way that if you look at Leonidas, you take him to 5-5-1-1 and you can just stop. Like, you're fine there. That's good. You've realized a lot of the value. You're going to avoid a lot of fights where you're getting below 50% anyways, and also his skill's really good, even at just 1 point into it. I'm not going to get into all the virtues of why a Leo 5-5-1-1 is so good. In fact, if you want that, I'll have a card up in the top. Check that little info button at the end of this video for the best 5-5-1-1 commanders. But I just wanted to show that to emphasize that Trajan is not in the same universe of commander for a 5-5-1-1 situation. You do want to go for that expertise over time. Now, this brings us to our second choice, which is completely different. I mean, you have 3 very different choices here for this Wheel of Fortune, and that is going to be YSS. And look, if you're a garrison captain, YSS is really good. He doesn't care about what troop type you're using, which means he's extremely versatile. He could be relevant in many future metas, and he's relevant now with the Xeno YSS combo just being very strong and well-rounded. You can really, like, comfortably use that to garrison against almost anything that will be thrown against you. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's a hard counter to everything that's being used right now. I'm just saying it's still really solid. And I imagine that YSS could be relevant again in the future as the top tier meta garrison, but could be the game is moving in some interesting and different directions now with kind of rock, paper, scissors. And it could be a disadvantage that YSS is kind of just a generalist, that he doesn't go all in on one mechanic and is weak to a bunch of other things. You see what I mean? We're entering into a world where one thing counters something else, and ideally you have that counter in place. Now, the other upside for a big spender for a commander like YSS is that, okay, you might be looking at having multiple garrisons running at a time, and in that case, YSS is again really good because you could put him with some other commander and use them in garrison together. And that's pretty solid. So even if he's not part of the meta pair, he could be part of a second garrison that you're running, which is something that I'm looking at doing, having 2 or 3 garrisons at a time, which is not optimal, but also, like, if you're the person who's on at that really dead time for your kingdom, it's pretty handy, okay? So all that to say that I think YSS is still a really solid spin on this wheel, and I don't see him losing a ton of value over time, even though we are overdue for some new leadership commanders to arrive into the game, and there could be a garrison commander or 2 that get thrown into the mix there. We don't know yet. But if they do, it could shake up YSS's relevance, and I mean, look, we'll know once that commander's in game. Right now, it isn't. Which brings us to the lowly Charlemagne. Oh, Charlemagne. I don't even know what to say about Charlemagne. Actually, I know exactly what to say, which is that if you're a whale, you would consider spending on him. But only if you're like a serious whale, like a whale's whale. If you are limited in any way on the amount of gems that you have to spend and you aren't able to do like the egg event and the wheels, like, do not spin Charlemagne. Save your gems for something else. Charlemagne has a weird role in Rise of Kingdoms, which is to say he doesn't really have much of a role right now in the end game. And even in the early game, he doesn't really have a role that is so unique that you couldn't accomplish it with some other commanders that are actually also good for other things, such as Mehmed. So Charlemagne is a commander that you would only spin as a big whale if you think that the support skills in Heroic Anthem might have one of Charlemagne's skills, and you think you're going to need it, or you think that the game developers are going to add more ways for commanders like Charlemagne that have lost their relevance to once again be relevant commanders. That would be why you would spin Charlemagne, is if over time you want to collect him, You've already maxed Trajan. You've already maxed YSS. So you're like, well, what do I spin? At that point, maybe then and only then it's Charlemagne. So a lot of things need to be true, which are definitely not true for most players in order to spin Charlemagne. Now, funny story about that. I am actually in that exact situation where maybe I should be spinning Charlemagne. I knew that verification was going to pop. I saw that. I was crawling my way over to get to the freaking Charlemagne wheel. All right, hold on. Because I have max YSS, because I've maxed Trajan, I might spin Charlemagne as a future investment, right? And because I'm a content creator and because I get a lot of gems and I do all the other events to make content out of it, okay? For me, it makes sense to do Charlemagne. And the sort of tiers I'm looking at right now would be to spin to either just 25 and call it for the 5 universals and say, well, I get a few universals, is what it is. It's fine, right? Or maybe I spin to 70 to get another 10 universals and you get all the other stuff along the way too. That might be worth it for the amount of gems that I spend. The final tier I would consider is just going to 100. You would only do this. You would only spin past 70 if you're really kind of banking on the idea that at some point Charlemagne will be made relevant again. And I really think that it would be a very, 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 very good game design philosophy to make it so that commanders never become irrelevant, even if they aren't the meta. I really think it is a strong game design philosophy to reward people for collecting all the things in the game, even if that reward does not come in the form of, like, wrecking your opponent in KVK because it's meta, but instead it's like, I don't know, the support skills are, I think, maybe a great example. Or, other games have things where you sort of send your commanders off to do quests every now and then. I'm not saying Rise of Kingdoms should add that, but I'm just suggesting that if you believe there will eventually be alternate value for commanders beyond support skills, which is in game, but only in Heroic Anthem, then going further with Charlemagne makes sense. But like the percent of people that are in that same decision point is probably very, very small. And if you're wondering, but I could be that special snowflake who has Charlemagne. There's nothing special about being that snowflake, okay? Yikes. Charlemagne's not good in Canyon. He's not the meta for rallying cities as far as I know. So stick with your Trajan if you want something for field that I think will have value for a very long time. Stick with YSS if you're looking for a sick garrison. And if you're that mega whale who's collecting, or you were already spending a bunch and you could do all the other events in the game already, and you just want to get to like 70 to get the universals, right? That's where I would stop. And I will probably spin this wheel. I will probably get to 70. Maybe I will go to 100. If you want to see that happen, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the stream where we do it. I might be a little bit crazy, but that's what I'm going to do. If you're looking for more information on Trajan, I'll have a card up in the top. Also, I guess I'll put a card up for my YSS guide as well, so you have more resources. I don't know that I have a Charlemagne guide. Do I need one? Is that a thing we need? So no card for him, but check the info button if you're looking for more about the other commanders. And until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies.